less
But
painful
but
or
is
less
it
stingy.
but is it a worse experience? Like,
No, it's still the same adrenaline rush.
absolutely.
It's not.
Well, he made very much money, but that night of his teammate. But that was a crazy fight, by the way. Great fight. Both guys are now in the UFC, by the way. Yeah, he's on a 5-fight winning streak. His only loss coming against Luis Gomez in Titan FC. Yeah, I'm very impressed with Sodiq Yusuff, man. And I've been since I saw him fight in Cage Fury against, I think it was against Vadim Ogar, where we knocked him out in the first minute or something. I was very impressed with that when I saw that. And since then I followed him. Very good fighter. Taking on Andre Fili. Andre Fili, yeah. The thing with Andre Fili is he won a fight he shouldn't have won, and he lost a fight he shouldn't have lost, in my opinion. If you're doing
What
what
are
I
you
mean.
talking about? Michael Johnson?
And the Bermudez.
Yeah.
I think Bermudez won the fight, and he won the Johnson fight. So, he's on a 2-fight winning streak. Impressive fight against Shayman Moraes last time out. He finished Shayman Moraes in the first
beat
round.
Miles Jury pretty decisively right before that too, right?
Yeah, true. And by the way, I'm still not cool with the UFC cutting Shayman Moraes. I think the guy has a lot of talent. And whatever. They just cutting here. They also cut Jinsu soon, and I think that's a little bit too soon. I mean, if you give a guy Piotr Jan in his debut and he makes it the fight of the night, and then he lost to Mario Batista and he makes it the fight of the night, maybe give him a third fight. I mean, you give John Phillips 4 fights with an 0-4 record. I mean, come on. Nothing against the guy, no disrespect, but
Marcel, that was a great attempted joke. The problem is his name is Jinsu San and not Jinsu Soon. Cut him a little too soon. But yeah, great. I still laughed at it. I thought it was funny.
Okay, thank you for ruining my joke.
I agree. He should not have been cut.
Okay, thank you. Still, thank you for ruining my joke. But I'm taking Sodiq Yusuff here by decision, man. I don't think Fili get finished here, but a decision, a pretty decisive one, with some nice striking work from Sodiq.
Yeah, so I think Fili's going to press the action, really be aggressive, try to get in Yusuff's face, get him uncomfortable. But, man, those hands are just so crisp. I think he catches him with a short, left hook or something, catches him in the second round and puts Andre Fili away. So give me Yusuff by TKO in the second. All right, headlining the televised prelims here is a battle at flyweight. Ranked combatants here, Roxanne Modafferi, number 7 ranked flyweight. She is a plus 600 underdog against the number 9 ranked Maycee Barber, who is the biggest favorite on this card at minus 900. We'll start with the Happy Warrior Roxy, 39 pro fights, including her 2 tough The Ultimate Fighter stints where she fought an additional 5 times on both those shows. 2-3 in the second UFC run, 2-4 overall. Comes into this one off a loss to Jennifer Maia. Barber, meanwhile, the future, another one of these competitors that fans are buzzing about, like Sodiq Yusuff, like Nasrat Haqparast, although for Maycee Barber, I think it's more than both those two. She now trains at Rufus Sport in Milwaukee. She is 8-0. 3-0 in the UFC, all finishes. Dispatched Jillian Robertson last time out in 3 minutes. Jillian Robertson has a really good UFC record, so that was a very impressive win there. We talked about her win over J.J. Aldrich earlier in the show. Big Marcel, on paper, this seems like a possible squash match for Maycee Barber, but what do you think?
I think it's very disrespectful, the line to Roxanne Modafferi. I definitely think Maycee Barber should be the favorite here in this fight, stylistically as well. But come on, man, minus 950. This is not Ronda Rousey against Bethe Correia, right? So, I don't see Modafferi winning this one. I don't think Macy Barber. Um, how do you say that? Macy Barber for me is like the girl in school you picked first when you had a sporting event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's very she's just nasty, man. And I mean it in a good way, you know. She's
Yeah, she
nasty. She wants
fights
to
nasty. Yeah.
yeah. She wants to win, and she doesn't matter what it takes, but she's gonna win, and that's what you need in this division. I think. I don't know if she's gonna be in the elite within 1 year, what she thinks herself, but I think she steamrolls Modafferi, man. Honestly, I don't hope so, but I think she steamrolls her. Probably hit her hard. She will knock her down. I think she finishes it with punches, probably within the first round. I think if it goes later in the first round, Modafferi maybe can come back in the third, but I think Macy already finished it by then. So I think Macy Barber.
Yeah. If there's any one part of Roxy's game that we know is behind, it's the striking. She's a phenomenal grappler. She has really good control on top, good ground and pound, but she is not an elite level striker like Macy Barber is. And Barber's fearless, and she's nasty. I think you described it perfectly. She is nasty in there, and yeah, I hate to say it too. I like Roxanne Modafferi as a competitor. She's done a lot for the sport, a lot for women's mixed martial arts, but Barber finishes her in the first round.
If you also saw like Modafferi DM'd her.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and then she replied with, Roxy DM'd me, but she can't, of the past can't stop the future.
She's she's so sweet, but the past can't stop the future. It's like,
exactly. Yeah, that's the nastiness she has. I don't normally really like that, because if somebody does something nice, you don't have to be like that all the time. But that pretty much describes her, how she thinks about it and what her mindset is. And I don't see her getting stopped anytime soon, or she has to really get to the elite of the division, I think.
Yeah, and just so the fans know what we're referencing here, apparently Roxanne Modafferi direct messaged Macy Barber on Twitter, Instagram, just letting her know of some of the weight cutting protocols that go on at the Fighter Hotel with regards to saunas and equipment and things like that. Just as a nice heads up, it's just a courteous thing to do. And that's Macy Barber said her response, Roxanne is so sweet, but the past can't stop the future, and she was going to destroy her. So I agree with you, Big Marcel. I don't really like to see, fighters take it out of when someone was doing something respectful like that, just show her the respect.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, yes, guys, I'm a snowflake, but what's up?
Nick Diaz, you know all the shit he talked forever throughout his career, but you watched him against Anderson Silva fight week. He didn't say a word, just head down, bowed, shook his hand. There's a level of respect to it, and I think Roxanne Modafferi is one of those that kind of deserves that next level of respect here. We go to the main card, pay-per-view main card, and we kick things off at lightweight. The number 9 ranked welterweight, Anthony Showtime Pettis, taking on Carlos Diego Ferreira. Diego Ferreira is the minus 230 favorite. Pettis, the former lightweight champion, is plus 190 underdog. And Big Marcel, I know you're very high on Carlos Diego Ferreira, so let's let you kick things off here in the main card opener.
So yeah, fun fight. This is the fight I'm looking forward to the most, besides the main event.
And correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't this originally set for the co-main?
Yeah, it was, and I don't know why they changed it.
Yeah.
So Anthony Pettis, we all know him. Everybody knows him. We follow the sport. The guy with the crazy kicks, right? Great BJJ game as well. He lost his last fight against Nate Diaz, as we all know, which he had how do you say that? Something on his hand, which I read earlier this week. He had before the fight with Nate Diaz. Yeah, before the fight with Nate Diaz, he got a hole in his hand or something. I don't know exactly. I haven't read the article because I was too lazy. I was kind of sleepy, and I saw that it's like I have to read it, but I forgot. So I don't know. He got that crazy Superman punch knockout against Stephen Thompson earlier last year in March, which was a crazy win for him. It was a come from behind win, but it's hard to say come from behind when it's still in the second round, right? So some more things can happen.
Yeah.
Diego Ferreira, I can say I picked him to win against Mirbek Taisimov, one of my few great picks of 2019. Everybody give me applause. Thank you very much. So Diego Ferreira, 5-fight win streak. His last loss comes to Dustin Poirier. That says a lot. Man, the guy's on the roll. He's with Fortis MMA now. And as we all know, we don't pick against Fortis MMA on this breakdown. At least not often.
Yeah.
So I don't really agree with the line that he's such a big favorite. I think it should be more even, but I'm taking Diego Ferreira, and I think he wins it by unanimous decision. He is really good. He's very underrated. I think people wrote him a little bit off after his loss back-to-back against Dariush and Poirier, but he's back, man, and he comes with a vengeance. I think he will be ranked after this fight.
Yeah, I just don't like the consistency out of Pettis in the last, wins and losses in the last 8. He's 9-8 in the UFC. Granted, he's been fighting the top of the division his whole UFC career, but that record doesn't jump out at you. Meanwhile, Fahea 7-2 in the UFC. Those 2 losses, Dustin Poirier and Beneil Dariush, those were in 2014 and 2015. Seems to have things figured out, especially behind him with the great team at Fortis MMA. Carlos Diego Fahea, unanimous decision for me.
Yeah, you also. Everybody calls him Diego Ferreira now, but I'm still used to say Carlos Diego Ferreira. So
yeah, that's how he came in. Yeah,
exactly.
You can't shake those things. All right, Claudia Gadelha against Alexa Grasso here at strawweight. Gadelha 6 in the rankings. She's -105. The number 11 ranked Mexican Alexa Grasso is -115. Gadelha, former UFC strawweight title challenger. She's back. She's 17-4 in her career. She's alternated wins and losses in her last 4. Comes into this one, though, off a decision win over Randa Marcos in September. Grasso is 11-3. She's only 26 years old, 5 years the junior of Gadelha. She is 3-3 in her UFC career, alternating wins and losses along the way. Comes into this one off a decision loss to Carla Esparza. Big Marcel, Alexa Grasso, and Claudia Gadelha. I'm going to go ahead and pick first. I favor Grasso on the feet, but this seems like a nightmarish matchup for her on the ground, and I just see Gadelha getting a takedown and just basically doing what she does best. So I'm going to take Gadelha unanimous decision. Where are you at?
Let me tell you something, man. When I still think Claudia Gadelha would have been the second UFC strawweight champion if she didn't get snubbed by the judges. And that's in the fight against Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the first fight, the split decision one, where she clearly won, in my opinion. And after that, she only got one time to fight for the title against the rematch against Joanna. She did well in the first 2 rounds, but she lost the last 3, and she lost the unanimous decision. So to get to this fight, Alexa Grasso has problems with girls who take it to the ground. That's a major issue, and Claudia Gadelha takes people to the ground. That's pretty obvious. The only thing with Claudia Gadelha is her cardio. It's never great after 1.5 round, and Grasso can take advantage from that. That said, Gadelha hasn't been impressive in her last, 4 fights. Her last impressive win was against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, probably in 2017. And Grasso has been more impressive, in my opinion, but she lost those fights against Carla Esparza. She won against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, which was a good win, but
lost against Felice Herrig too, right?
Yeah, true. And she won against Randa Marcos in the fight, which I think she lost.
Yeah, you know what? I think she won the Herrig fight and she lost the Marcos fight. That's how I saw it.
What do I thought? I thought Randa Marcos won against Grasso, but she should have lost against Esparza. That's the one how I saw it. But I think the Herrig fight was okay that she lost that one. I think I saw that way. But we always differ in opinion, so that's all good. To make a very long and uncomprehensive story short, I think Claudia Gadelha is going to win this one, probably by unanimous decision, or a split if her cardio gives up and she gets beaten on in the 3rd round. So I pick Gadelha in this one. I think she still has enough in her to get this one, and she got Mark Henry in the corner, man. Mark Henry has great game plans, so
yeah. I like that move for her. Formerly at Littrell's MMA in Albuquerque, now up at I always forget the name of Mark Henry's gym. I just say training with Mark Henry. I know.
I always say Almeida BJJ.
Yeah, that's Ricardo Almeida BJJ, but I don't know. Is that where Henry does his MMA training too? I don't know.
I also really don't know, honestly.
It's funny. Everyone always just says training with Mark Henry. They don't say where it's at. All right.
I always say Henry and Almeida, then I know the team.
All right. We move things along here. Heavyweights on deck. Alexei Olenek taking on Maurice Green. Olenek is the plus 110 underdog, despite being number 12 in the rankings. Mo Green, minus 130. So the boa constrictor, Alexei Olenek, comes into this one off back-to-back, for lack of a better word, scary knockout losses at the hands of Alistair Overeem and Walt Harris. The latter, quite brutal and quick, that loss to Walt Harris. He was down. He was twitching for a long time. That made me uncomfortable. The crochet boss, Maurice Green, 8-3 as a pro, 3-1 in the UFC, made it to the UFC rankings, but was finished last time out against Sergey Pavlovich. Marcel continually, to this day, gives me crap for picking Junior Albini over Maurice Green last year in Minnesota, but Green was coming off a terrible performance against Jeff Hughes, so that's where it came from. Big Marcel, Olenek, Green, where are you going with on this heavyweight tilt?
So first I wanted to say, I saw on Walt Harris' Instagram that he is hoping to get on a rumored UFC Birmingham card, and man, I hope for him he can get on that card and he gets a big fight, because we all know what happened, and man, it's great to see that he might go back in training, and let's hope that everything. Of course, it won't be the same as it was, but let's hope he can go on with his life, his family, man. Because what can you say about it? That's what I wanted to say when I saw Walt Harris' name. So I'm sorry for putting that out. Going further with the fight, Maurice Green. Well, he got finished pretty quick against Sergey Pavlovich recently. Was that in Shenzhen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Before that, 3-fight win streak, but not against the best competition, man. And Alexei Olenek, he's still in the top 15. He is still mean, and he has a great ground game. And I see him pulling guard in this one. He's crazy enough to pull guard again, and going for that. What's it again called? Sorry, the Ezekiel choke. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to get it, but he's going for that again. I think Alexei Olenek submits him in the first or second round. I think Maurice Green is still a little bit too green to fight with Olenek here. No disrespect to him, but taking on.
Did you purposely make that joke?
No, actually I didn't. But no,
I could tell the look out of your face. You didn't even make the face as if I made a joke. But yeah, Maurice Green a little too green to the face.
Yeah.
All right, I'm against you on this one. I've picked wrong Maurice Green in all of except his UFC debut, but I think he catches Olenek with a punch. I don't think Olenek's chin will hold up too much further. So give me Green in the first round, TKO.
Are you getting my, how do you say that? My Marlon Moraes logic. And when I did that, Marlon Moraes lost when I finally picked for him. So.
Oh, yeah. You had someone else like that, Derek Lewis, right?
Yeah, that's even worse. When I picked Derek Lewis, he lost, and when I pick against him, he won always. Yeah. I only picked right for him against DC.
That was the only time, yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the most easy ones.
Yeah. All right,
what was his last fight again, Lewis?
It was against Blagoy Ivanov in
I picked
MSG.
That one right. I picked that one right as well.
Co-main event time. Not a lot of folks happy about this fight getting the co-main event slot, but ranked bantamweights on the women's side. Holly Holm, currently sitting at 3 in the rankings, is the minus 135 favorite against number 5 ranked Raquel Pennington, who is the plus 115 underdog in a battle of recent bantamweight title challengers. This is a rematch from Holm's UFC debut, I believe, back in 2015. So Holly Holm, the preacher's daughter, only 12-5 in her pro career, but doesn't it seem like she's fought way more given her big fight credentials? She's 38, so definitely no spring chicken. 2-2 in her last 4, but most recently suffered that big TKO loss to Amanda Nunes in a title fight. This fight was actually supposed to take place in October, but Holmes suffered a torn hamstring in that one. So it's 3 months later. See how that holds up. Pennington is 10-7 in her career, 7-4 in the UFC. Comes into this one having beaten Irene Aldana last time out by a decision. Big Marcel, Holly Holm, and Raquel Pennington. I can just see your excitement all over your face for this co-main event.
Yeah, man, this will be a beautiful 15-minute bathroom break at 6 a.m. in the morning. Holly Holm, unanimous decision, and I couldn't care less.
So I don't really have too much else to say, but I'm going to go Pennington via decision on this one. Alrighty, let's go. Main event time. 5 rounds in the UFC's welterweight division. The number 4 ranked lightweight Conor McGregor takes on the number 5 ranked lightweight Donald Cowboy Cerrone. McGregor is the minus 330 favorite. Cowboy Cerrone is the plus 270 underdog. Notorious Conor McGregor. We're just getting down to business here. We're not talking theatrics. We're not talking his outside the cage personality, anything like that. He is 21-4 in his career. He's 9-2 in the UFC. He is the former UFC lightweight and featherweight champion. He has fought 1 time in the last 3 years when he suffered that submission loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov in October of 2018. Cerrone has fought 11 times since the McGregor's fight prior to Nurmagomedov. So he comes in. So when his lightweight title went over Eddie Alvarez, he comes into this one having lost back-to-back fights to Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. He is 4-6 in his last 10. He is the all-time UFC Zuffa fight leader. Big Marcel McGregor, big betting favorite on this one. Cowboy Cerrone, we know he can get it done on any given day. How do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, so the thing here is, the thing that really annoys me here actually is that Dana said if Conor wins, he will get the winner of Tony against Khabib, or he is the backup for that fight. I mean, if Cowboy wins, is he also the backup for that fight? Probably not, because he lost to Gaethje most recently. So that's, again, double standards from the UFC. But, hey, we didn't expect anything else, to be honest. Conor McGregor, I saw a great walkout shirt made for him for Reebok. You can crack a laugh, man. I mean, that was for fun. I said that, but okay. What can I say about this fight? I expect Donald Cerrone to fight smart, go trade with McGregor, getting caught and getting stopped by McGregor. That's what I expect. I hope Donald Cerrone uses his experience, man. He's world class on the ground. He's so good with his BJJ. Use it, man. Use it against a guy who gets 4 losses on his record, 4 times via submission. Use it, your grappling game. Why not? But he's probably going to stand and bang with him, and that's exactly why the UFC made this fight. He's going to stand and bang with him. If Justin Gaethje would said, I will grapple with McGregor, they probably made that fight because they don't want Justin Gaethje to stand and bang with McGregor. That's my opinion on this one. So, Conor McGregor, first or second round TKO. And the how do you say that? The story starts again with the UFC giving McGregor title shots and McGregor not defending him. So for the sake of MMA, please let Cowboy win. But McGregor will win.
I'd love to see Cowboy win, but I'm with you. McGregor TKO in the second round. I actually made a bet on this fight, and I don't usually do this, but let me hear what you think on this, Big Marcel. So I bet Conor McGregor in the distance at minus 205 for a full unit. I then put 0.44 units on Cowboy to win, which is now at plus 270. So either way, I come out profitable as long as one of those two things happen. If McGregor wins via decision, I'm out multiple units. So what do you think on that kind of arbitrage bet right there? You think that covers my ground? Yeah.
I think it's a good bet. Only Johnny the Greek doesn't agree with you, but I do. I think it's a good bet, man. But I don't know, man. I really, the thing is that really bothers me, and I know many of the MMA community is bothered with it, is that the UFC is keep pulling on Conor McGregor because he gets the money, and I understand it all. But at a certain moment, you have to look further, man. In my opinion, and we have a saying here: aan een dood paard moet je niet trekken, and that means you don't pull on a dead horse, and that's my opinion on this one, man. You shouldn't live in the past, but in the future. And the thing with Conor McGregor is he proved he's a great fighter, stand-up fighter. He has done well in his fights, in most of his fights, but he also proved that he never in his life, in his MMA career, has defended the championship. So why would you want him to fight again for a championship, knowing that he probably won't defend it, and knowing that he maybe even doesn't return to the octagon again because he has so much money that he can come back whenever he wants, and that's the thing. And I also heard that McGregor said he's making $80 million for this fight. I'm only hoping that that's including sponsorship, pay-per-view, proper whiskey. I hope that included, because if the UFC playing flat $80 million, it would be ridiculous. And that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. All right. Enough with the McGregor theatrics. There's enough casual fans on Twitter you can discuss that for if you want to engage in that.
They hate me now. They hate me now if they already did.
You and I want to talk business here, Big Marcel. We like the fighters. We want to talk all fights. First preliminary night all the way to the main event. All right. It's time to pick bonuses here. And I actually kind of want to go off. I want to do something unique here for this first card of the year. I want you to pick, first of all, pick a fight of the night in general. So choose a fight of the night.
I normally would say Carlos Diego Ferreira against Anthony Pettis, but probably Cowboy against McGregor. So,
all right, I'm going Hawk Parat and Dober.
Yeah, I'm going Carlos Diego Ferreira Pettis. I don't want to pick the main event.
Okay. And so 2 performance of the night bonus winners. I'm going to go Maurice Green and Sadiq Youssef. So you go 2 performance bonus of the night winners, and then I'm going to throw a twist at you.
McGregor and Barber.
Okay. So in the event, this does not have a fight of the night bonus winner, and I'm only doing it because of the Conor McGregor is on this card. And you know what? It's hard to imagine he gets a win, him or Cowboy gets a win and doesn't get a bonus. Let's go ahead and go 4 deep on performance bonuses in the event that there's no fight of the night bonus. So you got McGregor and Barber, add on 2 more potential if there's no fight of the night bonus winners.
You caught me off guard with this one.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
Yeah, amazing. Olenek. That's a difficult one. Let's go Askarov.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to go McGregor and Barber as my 2 other in case there is no fight of the night. All right, underdog of the night, Big Marcel, your options are Alexei Olenek, Claudia Gadelha, Alexa Kamer, and that's it.
JJ Aldrich, not an underdog?
No, she's a slight favorite. Ever so
Okay.
slight favorite.
Okay, we're going with Alexa Kamour.
I'm going to go, I'll go Brian Boom Kelleher for me. And then lock of the night. Oh, man, these are always tough. This is hard. Give me Macy Barber. Where are you going?
Yeah, that's the most. Yeah,
Okay.
the most common one,
Nothing wrong with that. All right, let's go ahead and recap these picks and get out of here. Both have J.J. Aldrich over Sabina Mazo. Split on this next one. I got Brian Boom Kelleher for my underdog pick of the night. Big Marcel's got O'Day Osborne. Both taking Askar Askarov. Both have Alexa Kamer getting it done in his UFC debut. Big Marcel has picked Kamer as his underdog of the night. Both taking Nasrat Haqparast. Both taking Sadiq Youssef over Andre Fili. Both taking Macy Barber. Both have Carlos Diego Ferreira. Both have Claudia Gadelha. I'm taking Maurice Green. He's got Alexei Olenek. I'm taking Raquel Pennington. He's got Holly Holm. Both have Conor McGregor over Cowboy Cerrone. Fight of the night, I'm going Nasrat Haqparast, Drew Dober. You have Diego Ferreira, Anthony Pettis. Performance of the night bonuses, you have McGregor and Barber with the contingent of Alexei Olenek and Askar Askarov, should we give out 4. I got Maurice Green and Sadiq Youssef with McGregor and Barber as my backup 2 in case we go 4 deep. And our lock of the night is both Macy Barber. Big Marcel, are you ordering the paper? Or I guess it's on Fight Pass for you, right?
It's no, it's on TV.
Veronica TV.
Yeah, it's actually SBS 9, but it's in cooperation with Veronica. So
okay,
yeah.
Lucky
free
dog,
TV.
Man. Bars in the city. I live in a very urban city in Chicago. They're charging like $50 or $60 just to get in to watch the fight. So I'm probably going to order it and just watch it at home and have some friends over.
Nice. Yeah. I'm just going to watch it on my own, I think, this time. So that's laid back as well.
Yeah.
I like to watch on my own sometimes as well. So no
yeah,
problem.
I do too. Big Marcel, let the people know where they can find and follow you.
Website MMADNA.nl. Also findable on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And my personal account, Big Marcel24 on Twitter and Instagram. And just reach out if you want to say anything or whatever. I will reply back.
One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, this guy right here, Marcel Dorff in the Netherlands. One of these days, man, I'm going to make a trip to Europe just to see you. All right. Thank you again. You can find me at Trademark MMA on Twitter. Reminder to subscribe to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. We will be back next week for UFC Raleigh. Looking forward to this fight card, everyone. Enjoy the fights and have a great rest of the week.
Red rose, pink toes. I know how this goes. I can't see in the future. I can know what will suit her. And every time I close my eyes,
I hope I don't have anything in between my teeth. Just had a burger. So
Happy New Year, friends and all. It is 2020, but your favorite duo is not going anywhere. We are back for another episode of The Breakdown, kicking off the new year here on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. I'm your co-host, Max Friedman, Trademark MMA. Got my main man over in Maastricht, Netherlands. You may know him from MMA DNA. You may know him from the fighter rankings just released. You may know him from all the scoops he breaks over year after year. You may know him from the European MMA scene, covering Bellator events. Marcel Dorff, Big Marcel. Happy New Year, my friend. How was your holiday season? How was your break? Catch the people up.
Happy New Year, man. Yeah, man, it was okay. I mean, the break from MMA wasn't that great, honestly, man. That's the annual MMA drought in January, which always sucks. But yeah, I had a week off, like after New Year, and then I got the flu. So I had that already in December. So I was really happy with that. Not, of course, but yeah, I'm at work again, so feeling pretty well. Looking forward to break this card down with you, and yeah. Let's keep it going, man. And Happy New Year to all listeners as well, by the way.
Happy New Year to all our faithful listeners who I think 90% of them come from Marcel's Twitter feed. So appreciate Big Marcel having the following and getting all the fans to listen to this show. We are The Breakdown on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. You can find this network wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, and there's a myriad of great content on the network. The Not Safe for Work MMA show, MMA Yesterday, the flagship show Between the Links. We got the UFC recap show. We got Early Stoppage, All Angles, and more shows coming in 2020. So keep those eyes peeled. Click, subscribe, download. We Love to have all listeners, so feel free to leave a review, rating, whatever you'd like to do. But we appreciate everyone who stops by the network to listen to our great content.
Man, by the way, I saw Between the Links with the Schmo, man. I still have to watch that. That should be good, right?
Yeah, the Schmo was on Between the Links this week. I have not listened just yet, but that is definitely in the queue for UFC 246 fight week. But shout out to Mike Heck lining up all these great guests for the Between the Links show week in and week out.
Can I say something?
Go for it.
Yeah, man. First of all, I want to congratulate you. Last year, you did great with the picks. You beat me fair and square. You did amazing, and I'm looking forward to take your crown this year. So, 2019, Max Friedman, breakdown champ. Congratulations, man. You deserved it.
Thank you, my friend. Just to let the fans know, we totaled the scores from the entire year of the breakdown. We finished with the following. So I finished with a 306 and 201 wins losses mark. So I 306 picks correct, 201 incorrect for a 59% correct rate. Big Marcel finished 292 and 225 for a 56% rate. As far as underdogs, I picked 18 correct. Big Marcel picked 13, and we tied picking 29 performance bonuses correct. We both picked up one at the end of the year with Chan Sung Jung getting it done over Frankie Edgar. You know what's funny? I was looking back at the notes, and I had both of us as, performance of the night wrote Jung, and for some reason, I immediately assumed, was like, did we really pick Da-Un Jung to get?
Ryan Snow here, and welcome to the premiere edition of what I like to call the Daily BS. It's kind of an extension of Snowman in the Morning, a little bit of In Case You Missed It. I know I don't have a fancy intro for it yet. I'm still working on it. But in today's episode, you're going to hear why a couple of people on the 80s 49ers should be in the Hall of Fame, some cool stuff I saw over the weekend, plus a wrap-up of the divisional and a preview of tonight's national championship between the Clemson Tigers and the LSU Tigers. It's a couple of hours of my best, and I want to continue to give my best to y'all. So sit back, relax, and strap it down and enjoy the Daily BS. My Snowman's take will concern the Hall of Fame. And before I get to some of the coolest stuff that I saw over the course of the weekend, I want to talk about a couple of individuals that played for my beloved team that are not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Anyone who knows me or knows of me, they know that my beloved team is the San Francisco 49ers. I became a fan of the 49ers in the 80s. And during the 80s, there were a couple of players on those Joe Montana-led teams and Steve Young-led teams that have long deserved their spot in Canton. Those two players in question are wide receiver John Taylor, a graduate of Delaware State, and the original jackknife all-purpose running back by the name of Roger Craig. I'll start with Roger Craig. Roger Craig has long since deserved his bronze bust and his gold jacket in the Hall of Fame. The numbers don't mean squat when it comes to Roger Craig, and Roger Craig has said as much. I've had plenty of people on this show over the past 6 years that have agreed with me and some that disagree with me. A very dear friend, Mark Kelly, who I'll have on later in the week, tells me, if you look at the numbers, he doesn't deserve a spot in the Hall of Fame. And if you look strictly at the numbers, he would be correct. But be that as it may, I say Roger Craig deserves his spot in the Hall of Fame for many a reason. See, there was an achievement that Roger Craig had in 1985, and he broke the achievement against the Dallas Cowboys. And this achievement was celebrated, or repeated, I should say, by Marshall Faulk, and then again by Christian McCaffrey this past season. That achievement is 1,000. 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same year. People have lauded Marshall Faulk, a Hall of Famer, for doing such a thing, and people have lauded Christian McCaffrey for doing such a thing. And I will never sit here in front of this microphone and say that Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey do not deserve the recognition for that achievement. I will never say that because that is simply not true. They absolutely deserve recognition for that achievement. It is a marvelous achievement. You have to be one heck of a player, especially one heck of a running back, to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. You've got to be one heck of a player to do that. My problem is this. The person who originated that feat, the person who was the first player ever to accomplish that feat, is not getting the recognition he deserves. That man's Roger Craig. He was one of the biggest highlights of the San Francisco 49ers and those teams. He was one of the most instrumental players for Joe Montana and Bill Walsh. I spotted a video Saturday morning as I was getting ready to get the day started. My wife was helping me get the day started, which highlighted everything that he did in a San Francisco uniform. He's second in scrimmage yards to Frank Gore. But it's like he was the first one to get 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same season. Again, that year was 1985. But it's not just the stats. It's the impact that he had. Him and Tom Rathman, another one that I believe deserves a gold jacket. The impact they had on that dynastic team. You couldn't mention Montana or Rice or anybody without mentioning Roger Craig and how big he was for that 49er offense. In Super Bowl 23, he carried 17 times for 71 yards. He also caught 8 passes for 101 yards. You know, the 49ers had 2 receivers that had 100 yards in Super Bowl 23. You know who the other one was? It was Jerry Rice. Roger Craig, as unfortunate as it is, and I have come to grips with this, got lost in the shuffle. When people ask me to name my 3 favorite running backs of all time, my 3 are always the same. Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, and Roger Craig. And I still get the question to this day, why do you put Roger Craig in your 3 favorite running backs? Well, it was fun to watch. He was tough as nails. He would hit you with those high knees. He was also a hurdler. And he was just one tough cookie. That's one of the reasons, aside of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Bird, and Patrick Ewing, that I always loved the number 33. Roger Craig wore the number 33. And why he does not have his spot in the Hall of Fame, it's a crime to me. It's an absolute crime that Roger Craig does not have his rightful place in Canton. Which brings me to the second former 49er who spent his entire career in San Francisco that deserves his spot in Canton. And that's John Taylor, wide receiver out of Delaware State. Why isn't John Taylor in the Hall of Fame? Once again, people will make the argument, if you look at the numbers, he does not deserve a spot in Canton. And if you look at the numbers on the surface, again, you would be correct. But I look at the impact. I thought the Pro Football Hall of Fame was all about not just the numbers you put up, but the impact that you have on the game. And John Taylor had a hell of an impact on the game with the 49ers, a former punt returner. He came into the league in 1986, drafted by the 49ers as a punt returner. And he became the number 2 wide receiver, or as I like to say, 1B, because 1A was Jerry Rice all day long. What if Jerry Rice had an off day? Who gets the ball? John Taylor does. I'll bring up an achievement that John Taylor did on Monday Night Football, which has yet to be duplicated. John Taylor is the only receiver in the history of the NFL on Monday Night Football to have not one, but two 90-yard touchdown receptions in the same game. That occurred in 1989 against the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles, or Anaheim as they were playing there at the time. See, my wife's laughing at me because she knows when I get on a roll, I get very, very passionate about something I believe in. And I believe in the fact that John Taylor and Roger Craig both belong in the Hall of Fame. John Taylor only had one catch. I go back to Super Bowl 23. John Taylor only had one catch in Super Bowl 23. Just happened to be the game winner. He caught a touchdown pass from Joe Montana in Super Bowl 24 the next year. He doesn't have that many catches, but the impact is sure huge. Going back to that game in 1989 against the Los Angeles Rams, he caught 11 for 290 yards. Nearly had 300 receiving yards in that game. Montana threw for 450 that night. Jerry Rice was a decoy. Rice and Taylor were the only pair of HBCU teammates to start not one, not two, but three Super Bowls, 23, 24, and 29. Let me say that again. John Taylor and Jerry Rice are the only pair of HBCU receivers to be teammates to start three Super Bowls. And by the way, John Taylor, just as Jerry Rice did, won all three. So what's the problem with this picture? Why in the world is John Taylor, number 82, which is currently occupied by Ross Dwelly of the 49ers, why is John Taylor not in the Hall of Fame? Same reason Roger Craig, I believe, is not in the Hall of Fame. Aside of the numbers, he got lost in the shuffle. I mean, when you're playing opposite of Jerry Rice, and Jerry Rice is setting every record in the book, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, especially with those 49er teams and the impact that they had. The impact that they had is enormous. But Jerry Rice doesn't get the most valuable player if most valuable player Super Bowl 23 if John Taylor doesn't catch the game-winning touchdown pass. Montana doesn't connect with Jerry Rice for 3 touchdowns in Super Bowl 24 if John Taylor didn't have 5 catches in that game, including a touchdown pass. Taylor and Rice both caught touchdowns in that third quarter in Super Bowl 24, and Taylor was such an important cog on that offense, they helped the 49ers become one of only 2 teams, Dallas Cowboys being the other, to score 50 points in a Super Bowl game. 55 to be exact, when they demolished the Denver Broncos and John Elway 55-10. And this is coming from a punt returner who had some off-the-field problems, true, but he straightened himself up. He straightened his life up and became one of the most biggest impact players in 49er history. His number, I believe, should be retired by the team. As I said, it's currently occupied by Ross Dwelly, backup tight end for San Francisco. The number 33 should be retired by San Francisco. It's currently occupied. So when you talk about the 49ers of the 80s, the dynasty that rose out of nowhere thanks to a miraculous catch by one Dwight Clark, you have to put Roger Craig and John Taylor in that conversation. Why do you think the 49ers were so feared? Let's look back at the 89 season again. 60 catches for John Taylor. Look at all the receivers from 1989. Taylor caught 60, Brent Jones caught 40, Jerry Rice caught 82, Roger Craig caught 49, and Tom Rathman 73. You want a reason John Taylor should be in the Hall of Fame? 1989, right there. And again, he came into the league as a punt returner. And he took 4 of them back for touchdowns. I believe he took 4 of them back for touchdowns. I know Mark's going to get on me about having incorrect stats, and I'm sorry. I tried to prepare as best as I can. But be that as it may, will you please, NFL Hall of Fame, everyone involved with the Hall of Fame who votes for the players, the coaches, the representatives, would you do this 49er fan and lots of other 49er fans a favor and please give Roger Craig and John Taylor their due in Canton, Ohio? To say that it's much deserved would be a gross understatement. And the fact that they have not been elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio is a dire travesty. And that's being nice about it. To say that it's a travesty is a gross understatement. Because those two should have long been elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, given the impact that they had on their team. Now, yeah, Roger Craig spent some time with the Oakland Raiders at the tail end of his career. But if you want to just point to one reason why those two teammates deserve their spot alongside Montana and Montana and Rice and others from that dynastic team deserve their spot in Canton, Ohio, let the fact that Roger Craig, who was the first running back to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving in the same reason, make his case alone. And let the fact that John Taylor still is the only player in the era of Monday Night Football to have 2 90-yard touchdown receptions in the same game. And oh, by the way, each of them won multiple Super Bowls. You want to count rings? How about a total of 6 between the two of them? That's Snowman's take. What's yours? Hey, we're just getting started here on this pre-edition. Got to take a break, but when we come back, got some more stuff for you on the Daily BS. Back in a moment. Welcome back. We continue on this premiere episode. Hope you're enjoying it as I'm enjoying bringing it to you. And there was some more stuff that happened, and some of it sounded like this. In terms of the Kansas City Chiefs' comeback against the Houston Texans, they completed the 4th biggest comeback in playoff history. Of course, the biggest was Buffalo against Houston. Came back from 35 down 35-3, and won 41-38. Indianapolis 2013 versus, oddly enough, the Kansas City Chiefs, down 38-10, won 45-44. Super Bowl 51, you know the end of that story. 2003, the 49ers came back against the Giants, down 38-14, won 39-38, and of course Sunday, Kansas City came back down 24-0 against the Houston Texans, won 51-31, and I still can't believe Kansas City put up 51 points in that game. Speaking of games, there's a big one tonight at the Superdome in New Orleans. It's the Clemson Tigers and the LSU Tigers. It's Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow for the College Football Playoff National Championship. And I'm going to say a few things that are going to get on some people's nerves, especially those in Columbus, Ohio. But I'm going to say it, and I'm going to mean it. The two best teams are in the national championship game with a chance for the Clemson Tigers to do something that hasn't been done in a while, and that is repeat as national champions. And for the first time in the national championship game, the Clemson Tigers don't have to see the Alabama Crimson Tide, because the Tide didn't even make the playoff. After the Tide lost to Auburn, their season was cooked. But then they beat Michigan, so I'm a little happy for them. But the two best teams are in the national championship game tonight. That's Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers, and Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers. You know what? Clemson kind of reminds me of the San Francisco 49ers. And I mean that in this sense. The Clemson Tigers are undefeated. They're the ACC champions. They're the defending national champions after they trounced Alabama in the Bay last year. But then you have a lot of folks that are screaming, yeah, but Yeah, but Trevor Lawrence wasn't performing well. Yeah, but the Clemson defense gave up a lot. Yeah, but. Here's the problem with all those yeah, buts. The Clemson Tigers are playing for a second consecutive national championship, period. Once again, I'll say it again. The Clemson Tigers are playing for a second consecutive national championship, period. So you can take all those yeah buts and shove them out the window. Trevor Lawrence and the Clemson Tigers rolled through the ACC. They had a difficult time with North Carolina, but they won. They had a difficult time with a couple of other teams in the ACC, but they won. And here they are in New Orleans with a chance to repeat as national champions. Repeating as national champions. That hasn't been done for a while. That hasn't been done for a long while. Especially it hasn't been done in the era of the college football playoff. So all those yeah buts mean nothing because the orange and purple are in New Orleans. Speaking of purple, you got golden purple in the form of Joe Burrow and the LSU Tigers. And the yeah but on that side concerned Oklahoma. And LSU shut that noise up with a first half I've never seen before, where Joe Burrow put up 7 touchdowns in the first half, 8 altogether. What? Someone told me before the season started that Joe Burrow was going to win the Heisman and it wasn't going to be close. And I'm thinking, who in the blank is Joe Burrow? Well, Joe Burrow made a believer out of me, as did Trevor Lawrence. I didn't think Trevor Lawrence would step into Deshaun Watson's shoes. Boy, was I fooled. I was fooled big time. And I'll say I was fooled big time by both of these quarterbacks. And it's going to come down to these quarterbacks and which one makes the best plays to win the national championship. I'll give my prediction here in just a moment. But there's a couple of other players that play a key position that is going to tell a lot about tonight's national championship game. That's Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Travis Etienne. What do they have in common? They play running back dynamically. These are two of the most dynamic running backs I have seen in the country, and they aid their offense big time. Hell, Edwards-Helaire, and I apologize for that word, Edwards-Helaire wasn't even close, or wasn't even supposed to be playing in the national semifinal against Oklahoma. I learned about Edwards-Helaire after the win against Alabama when they went into Bryant-Denny Stadium and hung 46 points, 33 in the first half. 33 in the first half at Alabama by Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the rest of the Louisiana State University Tigers. I know Chris Blair is going to have a ball calling that game tonight for the LSU Sports Network. It's going to be a great championship game. I was talking with a couple of people at work, and I don't know how to lean in this game. I really don't, because I like both teams. As long as Alabama's not involved, I don't have... Look, I would say I don't have a horse in the race, but I got 2 of them in the race. I got Clemson and LSU, which was my original pick when the playoff seedings came out. When the original playoff seedings came out, I said it was going to come down to Clemson and LSU. Hell, my original pick was Clemson, Ohio State. And then they got matched up in the same game, which was kind of cruel. But it just shows you how far Ohio State has to go to get back to the national championship. They're already back in prominence, okay? I don't want to say that incorrectly and make my friend Robert Cobb angry, who I'm going to have on the show later this week. But at the same time, you just don't want to sell either of these teams short. And both of these teams are two of the most complete teams that I have ever seen that are matched up for all the marbles tonight for the national championship. If I have to pick a winner, if I have to pick a champion, and believe me, I've gone back and forth like I'm doing right now in my head, going back and forth in this game. Who do I want to win more? Do I want to see Joe Burrow hoist the national championship trophy? Or do I want to see Trevor Lawrence hoist it for a second consecutive year? I don't know. I really don't know which way to lean in this game. I don't know which I don't know which way to go. But I know people are going to ask, and tweet your pick to I can't talk this morning. I'm sorry. Tweet your pick to at SITM 9 to noon. That's SITM, the number 9, TONOON. Use the hashtag SITM CFP National Championship and give me your pick. Let's see what happens. Well, if I'm going to make a pick, now I'm going to have to here. I wouldn't mind either one of these two teams winning the national championship. And I know I'm stalling. I know I'm stalling. I absolutely know I'm stalling. And people are going to ask, and they're going to continue to ask. Well, I don't know. Travis Etienne, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, great receivers on both sides, especially with LSU. I don't know. Here's the thing. Do I want the Heisman Trophy winner, who's certainly going to be the number 1 overall pick, or do I want the defending champion to take home another trophy and get another offensive MVP? Well, actually, Travis Etienne was the offensive MVP last year. I don't know. I love both teams. I absolutely love both teams. Well, here it is. I'm going to go ahead and make my pick before we go to break. But I see nothing but offense in this game. Lots and lots of offense in this game. And the Superdome is a fast track. The Superdome is a fast track, and both these teams love to play fast. They love to play tempo. It's going to, oddly enough, as I give you a quick breakdown of this, it's oddly enough going to come down to whoever makes the biggest defensive play in this game that's going to decide it. That's about the best I can come up with because I can't pick either way. I love both these teams. And I say may the best team win the national championship tonight. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The national championship will be decided on the defensive team that makes the biggest play. And I can't pick. I told a friend at work that my pick would be Clemson. But then after going over this game several 100,000 times over in the time that LSU demolished Oklahoma and Clemson sneaked past Ohio State, then I don't know. Let me know your pick. Tweet your pick to at SITM 9 to noon. You can do it on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Let me know what your pick is for tonight's national championship game. Hey, don't go away. There's more of the Daily BS coming your way after these. Welcome back. We continue on this premiere episode. Hope you're enjoying it as I'm enjoying bringing it to you. And there was some more stuff that happened, and some of it sounded like this. I want to welcome a friend back to the show, and a person who, as I found out, became a grandpapa, just like yours truly. He's also my NBA insider. This is one part of the Sports Junkies. That's the intro that you heard before I came back. This is Chris Pirtle, and he joins me right now. What's up, man?
Hey, Brian, how's it going? Good to be with you today.
Good to be with you as well. NBA season just about halfway through. Any big surprises aside of the obvious?
Well, yeah, there's a couple. I mean, let's start at the top of the list with the Oklahoma City Thunder, currently sitting at 22-17. And Brian, if the playoffs started today, the Thunder would be in the mix at the 7th seed.
Indeed,
when the season started. Yeah, and when the season started, I, and about 95% of NBA fans had the Oklahoma City Thunder scheduled to finish at the bottom 3 of the Western Conference with Golden State and the Memphis Grizzlies. And here they are this late in the season, 39 games into the season, almost halfway through the season, and they're in the 7th spot in the playoff race. Truly an incredible job by Coach Billy Donovan this year.
What do you think has brought them together to get them to this point?
Well, I think it starts with the coach, but you also have to have coachable players. So you have to give the players on that team a ton of credit, from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a player that as the season began, predicted would be the most improved player in the league. And right now he's certainly on pace to achieve that award. Chris Paul, you have to give a ton of credit to him as well. He couldn't have been that happy going to that particular situation in Oklahoma City, yet here he is with a chance to lead that team into the playoffs. So it starts at the top, in my opinion, with great leadership and with the coach, Billy Donovan. The man can coach. I know him well. He coached here in Florida for a while. We saw him get one game away from the NBA Finals back in 2016. So the credit goes to the coach and the coachable players on that team.
Oklahoma City has definitely been a surprise, and as Chris just mentioned, they're in the playoff mix right now as we approach the halfway point. Who do you think has been the biggest surprise in the Eastern Conference? We got our Western Conference team out of the way. Who do you think has been the biggest surprise in the East?
Sure, and that will be the Miami Heat. One quick and last point about Oklahoma City, and then I'll move on to Miami, Brian. If you look at where Oklahoma City was this time last year, 39 games into the season, they sat one game ahead of where they are now, and that was with Paul George and Russell Westbrook on that team. So just to reiterate, what an incredible job Billy Donovan has done with that team and what's going on in Oklahoma City. But in terms of surprises in the East, I've got to look at the Miami Heat, Brian. I don't think any of us thought that almost halfway through the season we would see the Miami Heat sitting in second place in the Eastern Conference. I keep waiting for the bottom to fall out on this team, Brian, because quite frankly, I haven't been a believer these first 40 games. But if this keeps up, I'm going to have to finally admit that I'm wrong. Now, let's keep this in mind, too, Brian. The Heat have had a pretty favorable schedule this first half of the season. Let's see what happens the second half of the season. But I must admit, I'm starting to almost become a believer.
Almost being the operative word. And as you just said, my friend, let's see where the second half takes them. I was touting the Chicago Bulls at the start of the season, and I said they could sneak in to the playoff picture. Does that still hold water?
Well, every time I look at the standings, Brian, I can't help but think about you when I see those Bulls, and I'm waiting for them to make that move. They haven't done it, but the good news for them right now is the bottom is falling out in Brooklyn. I mean, what a disaster it is.
Yeah.
When you bring in Kyrie Irving, I mean, what did you really expect if you're Nets management? He's probably going to end up missing the rest of the season. Wouldn't be surprised if the Nets fall out of the playoff race altogether. So that's going to leave room for another team. Will that other team be the Washington Wizards? I doubt it. They are decimated by injuries, although they've played well recently. Can that team be the Chicago Bulls? Very possible, because I don't think it could be the New York Knicks. I don't think it could be the Charlotte Hornets, but let's give James Borrego a ton of credit, which is very similar to Billy Donovan. Look where Charlotte is in the standings. They are competing for that 8th and final spot in the Eastern Conference, and you think, well, who's on that team? A gaggle of nobodies we've really heard of outside of Terry Rozier.
Yeah.
So I think that 8th spot's going to come down to Charlotte and your Chicago Bulls. Going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
It is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I still tout that the Bulls can sneak into the playoffs, and I really believe that they will sneak into the playoffs. The Bulls are a very, very hungry team. They got a big win over the course of the weekend. Granted, it was against the Detroit Pistons, but when you're a rebuilding team like the Bulls, you take any win that you can and use it as momentum.
Yeah, I agree. And for the Bulls, I think one of the keys for them, Brian, is they've got to get Otto Porter in that lineup on a consistent basis, meaning he's got to stay healthy. He's under contract with that team to the tune of $25 million per year. He's making a nice salary, and that obviously impacts the Chicago Bulls salary cap. They need production from him. They can't get it when he's injured, so they have to hope that Otto Porter is going to be healthy and contribute to this team. If he does, that will obviously help their cause of getting into the playoffs.
Talking with Chris Pirtle, our NBA insider. Let's look toward the top of the Eastern Conference. I said on this program when a lot of people came to me and asked me about the Philadelphia 76ers, I mentioned two factors that could derail them from the month of June. One is the health of Joel Embiid, and two is a missing jump shot from Ben Simmons.
Yeah, and it continues to plague that team. You know, it's weird, Brian. On certain days, that team looks like it could be a team that can make it to the conference finals. We saw that on Christmas Day when they beat the Milwaukee Bucks. Then we saw them promptly lose the next 3 games in a row. I believe they even lost 4 out of 5 after beating Milwaukee. And they did that in impressive fashion that day on Christmas Day, albeit in Philadelphia. But the team has skill. They have talent. They've got depth. It's the first team I've ever seen in the NBA to have 4 players with contracts that exceed $100 million. They have 4 guys with $100 million plus contracts on their team. So ownership has gone all out to spend money. I think Brett Brown at times is a good coach. At times I see him make mistakes, but I don't think he's the one to blame. Like you said, Ben Simmons, his inability to shoot that jump shot, that really gets magnified in the playoffs, and it could cause the Sixers to once again get a second-round exit in the playoffs.
And it's happened already. You've seen it since he's come into the league. His inability, as you said, Chris, to make a jump shot. That has cost Philadelphia big time. They win a playoff series in 2018. They promptly get eliminated in the second round against a team that I want to talk about now toward the top of the Eastern Conference, and that's a team you've touted. That's the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, well, you know, the Celtics got a victory last night. As a matter of fact, it was about a 35-point beatdown that they laid on the Pelicans last night. But let's keep in mind, the Celtics were not in a good mood. They had hit their worst stretch of the season. They lost 3 games in a row, one against the San Antonio Spurs on their home court. The Celtics aren't used to that, and they didn't want to get used to that. They rebounded last night, got the victory, and even though they've lost 3 out of 4, they're only a half game behind Miami for that second spot in the East. You know, Brian, one thing I like about the Celtics, they have the best big 3 in basketball. When you look at Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, who, by the way, had 41 points last night in that beatdown of the Pelicans, and Jaylen Brown, who has finally taken his game to the next level. Those 3 guys in the month of December, Brian, they all averaged 20 or more points. That hasn't happened for any team this season at all. Matter of fact, it's the first time it's happened for a Boston Celtic team since 2007 when KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce all averaged over 20 points in the month of November in 2007. So this Celtic team, in my opinion, is special. And when your 4th guy, you've got a big 3, but your 4th guy is Gordon Hayward, who was on the Western Conference All-Star team just 3 seasons ago, that is an excellent nucleus. I think they've got the head coach in place. And if Taco Fall gets in there and starts blocking some shots, this team's heading for the finals.
I really believe that also. And here's a question, and you posed this to me earlier in the year. Why are the defending world champions still flying under everyone else's radar?
Good question, because, I still make that mistake, and I'm guilty of it, but they've got some depth on that team, Brian. Chris, the last name escapes me. I wish I had it in front of me, because he's just one of many players that team is developing. The player development that we see in Toronto, I think, is really, it's up there. It's up there with the Celtics and some of these other teams. We saw how they've developed Pascal Siakam into the player that he's become, and they've done that with a few other young players. Look at Fred VanVleet. The guy wasn't even drafted. Now he's one of the top point guards in the entire league. Look at his numbers. It's not a stretch to say VanVleet is a top point guard in the NBA these days. So, yeah, they continue to fly under the radar. They did the same thing, though, last year, Brian, because it was 2 seasons ago the Toronto Raptors finished the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. They had the coach of the year in Dwayne Casey. That didn't work out too well for them. Last year they flew under the radar pretty well. Nick Nurse has never lost a playoff series as a coach, one of only 3 coaches in the NBA history to win the NBA title in his first year as a coach. Yeah, let's keep an eye on the Raptors. We definitely cannot count those guys out.
Staying in the East, let's take a look at the mess that is the Brooklyn Nets. All the ballyhoo this offseason, signing Kevin Durant, signing Kyrie Irving, and now Kyrie Irving is out, as you mentioned, probably for the remainder of the year, if not longer. What has happened to the Brooklyn Nets?
Well, it's right now it's turning into what's probably going to end up being a dumpster fire by the end of the season. And it's a shame, because you see good players, young players like Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think are capable of becoming part of a playoff team. But when you bring in a guy like Kevin Durant, who's not even going to do anything for you this year, and then a guy like Kyrie Irving, we saw what he did to Boston last season. And Brian, you know what? I can't help but think, what if Kyrie Irving this offseason would have told Danny Ainge, hey, I want to return to Boston? That could have been I don't know what Ainge would have said, but I have a feeling Ainge may have said yes, because Ainge is the same guy that had a chance to trade Kyrie Irving at the trading deadline last year and didn't do it. He rolled the dice and crapped out. Luckily for the Celtics, he's Brooklyn's problem now, but I can't help but wonder if that scenario would have taken place this past offseason.
Does it seem like the Nets have been snake bitten since they got to Brooklyn?
Somewhat, but Brian, I think that's always been one of those snake-bitten franchises. They've always been what we could call some of the most pitiful and pathetic franchises in the NBA. The LA Clippers, for the past 50 years, were in that boat until they got Doc Rivers and Steve Ballmer part of that organization. The New Jersey Nets, even when they were in New Jersey, it was a tough luck franchise. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'll always say this, Brian. I never thought that Byron Scott ever did, and I don't think he ever will, get enough credit for leading the New Jersey Nets to back-to-back appearances in the NBA Finals.
Yes.
In 2002 and 2003. I don't think Byron Scott will ever get enough credit for the job he did in New Jersey.
Let's go to the Western Conference and look at the top of that. It's the Battle of Los Angeles. And I've said on this program, and you've been with me, that the Lakers are 1 or 2 significant injuries away from being also-rans again. Everybody was ballyhooing about the Lakers and the start that they got off to, and then bang, an injury to Anthony Davis.
Yeah, well, the Lakers had that 4-game winning streak right around Christmas, right when they started playing some good competition, ironically enough. And since then, they've gone on an 8-game winning streak, so I've got to give them credit for that. But you're right, Brian. What's going to happen when AD gets injured and has to miss a month or two? What's going to happen then? So, and believe me, it's going to happen. It's just a question of when. I thought it would happen the other night. Luckily for the Lakers and Davis, he was able to bounce back and play in the very next game, so I give him credit for that. But unfortunately, injuries are part of the game. So what's going to happen when they lose AD for a few weeks or they lose LeBron for a few weeks? That's when we're going to find out how good this team is.
What's missing in Laker country? If you could point to a couple of things that are missing on this team that could truly get them over the hump, even if they do lose Anthony Davis or do lose LeBron James for an extended period of time? What is missing?
I think a deadly shooting guard is what's missing. I want to say a point guard is what's missing, but I can't because LeBron James is playing that position and he's doing it relatively well. He's getting numbers, double-digit assists. So I won't say a good solid point guard is what they're missing because LeBron has been able to fit that role. But what they're missing is that Ray Allen type at the two guard, that Kobe Bryant type at the two guard, that Manu Ginobili at the two guard. If they had somebody that could be that deadly threat at the two guard position on a consistent basis, night in and night out, and that's why Kyle Kuzma does not fit the bill right now for that position. But if they had that deadly shooting two guard who can drain three-pointers on a consistent basis, I think that could be something that would put the Lakers over the hump.
Speaking of Kyle Kuzma, trade rumors abound. The trading deadline less than a month away. Does Kyle Kuzma get out of Los Angeles?
I think the Lakers would be wise to keep him. We've seen Kuzma go for over 40 points in a game. And let's keep in mind with Kyle Kuzma, Brian, he's only in his third year. He was a late round draft pick. I believe he was actually late first round or early second round. So he was never highly touted coming out of college. And the improvement we've seen this young man make in his first two NBA seasons has blown everybody's mind. If I'm the Lakers, I would be patient with him and continue to hope that he improves because maybe by next season, he could be that two guard that I just described that they need. So if I'm the Lakers, I'm holding on to Kuzma unless it's an offer that I cannot refuse.
Let's look at the Clippers. They're contending for, dare I say it, a division title, a conference title, and it began with the arrival of one Kawhi Leonard, a two-time finals MVP. They've slipped here and there throughout the course of the season, but they're right in the thick of the race.
Yeah, they sure are. They still sit in the number 2 seed in the Western Conference standings. They've got a big game tonight with Denver, so that'll determine who's going to be number 2 and number 3 as we go into tomorrow. But, the Clippers, Brian, they're really not concerned about winning the Pacific Division. They actually did that twice back in 2013 and 2014, and that's the only time they've won the Pacific Division. But the division championship doesn't matter. The conference championship does. The NBA Finals matter. I love the way this team has approached the season. They're not beating their brains out like the Lakers seem to be doing. They're taking some time off here and there, and there's nothing wrong with that because as an organization, from Lee Jenkins, Steve Ballmer, Doc Rivers, Lawrence Frank, their mindset is this. We want to deliver the Los Angeles Clippers, their first ever NBA championship. Hell, we want to get to the NBA. We want to get to the conference finals for the first time in franchise history.
Yeah.
Let's not beat our brains out during this 82-game regular season, which is completely meaningless because we're all going to make the playoffs. Let's not beat our brains out. Let's be ready to go when it's April 15th. Then we'll start beating our brains out on our way to an NBA championship. I like the way they're approaching it. I think it's a smart way, and I think it's going to pay dividends come this spring.
Well, one team that we have to look at, and you and I poke fun at them most of the time, that's the Houston Rockets. On and off this season with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. Regular season theater, great. Postseason theater, not so much. How do you see them?
Well, we've seen this movie before with James Harden. Now he's got Russell Westbrook with him. It's incredible because we've seen the Houston Rockets give the Clippers problems. It was just 3 weeks ago on a Friday night. They went in there and gave the Clippers a beat down at Staples. So on certain nights, this team looks like it's one of the top 4 teams in the Western Conference. Then on other nights, Brian, looks like they don't even have any business making the playoffs. So it's a strange team. They did just recently get Eric Gordon back. And speaking of high-dollar contracts, we talked about Philly with 4 guys making over $100 million. This is the only team in the history of the NBA to have 2 guys with $200 million contracts. Yes. When you look at Harden and Westbrook.
And
so ownership has gone all in as far as the money they're spending. Clint Capella even has a $90 million deal But they got Eric Gordon back here recently. Let's see if he can provide a spark. But, Brian, I'm like you. It's hard to take these guys seriously.
It really is. And I've had my friend Cole Johnson on the program several times. He's a Rockets man, but he pointed something out to me, and it's so true. The Rockets were so, for lack of a better term, hell-bent on beating Golden State. They had 4 shots at them and failed each time. Then came Christmas night, and the Warriors beat them again. And they're half the team that they were, and they're decimated by injury.
Yeah, Steve Kerr's got their number, and it seems like he has since he's been the coach there. So, yeah, he's got their number. And, when we look at the Western Conference, Brian, to me it's very simple. We've got the 2 teams in L.A. Those are the 2 front runners. We've got the 2 teams in Texas. And on certain nights, the Mavericks can look like world beaters, and certain nights they don't look good. So in a lot of ways, they're similar to their Texas mates, the Houston Rockets. But it's those 2 Mountain Zone time teams, Brian, that I really wonder about, and that we don't know a whole lot about yet because they're still assimilating guys into their lineup. Look at the Utah Jazz right now, Brian. Winners of 8 straight. They and the Los Angeles Lakers have the longest winning streak currently in the NBA at 8 games. Unlike the Lakers, though, Brian, the Jazz have actually beaten some quality teams during this winning streak.
They have.
They're still... Yes, sir, and they're still getting Mike Conley adjusted, and once he gets adjusted, fully adjusted into that lineup, watch out for the Jazz, a load of talent. We talked about Boston's big 3. Well, Utah's got a good one with Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, and Donovan Mitchell with a ton of depth to go on top of that. Let's keep an eye on the Jazz. That could be a scary team.
How big was that move for them to pick up Mike Conley in the offseason?
Well, I think it's going to be good, but so far, Conley has missed a lot of time, hasn't been really productive with that team. I think that's going to change. I think they are slowly getting him assimilated to the lineup, slowly getting him into the mix in Salt Lake. And like the Clippers, they understand it really doesn't matter what happens in the regular season. Let's get Conley going. Let's ease him into the lineup. Let's make sure that the old man is healthy because Conley's obviously not getting any younger. Let's make sure that he's healthy when we get to April. And like I said, I think the acquisition of Conley, though, is going to make Utah a better team. The question is, can it get them to the conference finals this year? We've seen them go to the second round in each of the last 2 seasons. Can Conley be the guy that gets them to the third round?
We talked about earlier, Chris Pirtle joining me. We talked about the mess that is the Brooklyn Nets in the Eastern Conference. Can you classify the Portland Trail Blazers as the same thing for the Western Conference?
Yeah, and it's weird because when you look at this team, I was thinking about this the other day. They bring in Hassan Whiteside in the offseason, and he's putting up really good numbers. Now, I don't know how good of a team player Whiteside is. He had his struggles in Miami. But in terms of putting up individual numbers, his rebounding numbers and his block shots are incredible this year. So from a fantasy perspective, he's a really good player. From a realistic reality player, I don't know how good he's actually helped that Portland team. We've seen Carmelo Anthony join that team and give them some good numbers. So, you see Whiteside and Anthony on top of Lillard and McConnell. You definitely had some expectations for a team that went to the Western Conference Finals last year, and they don't look like they're going to be anywhere close to that this year. So I think that is a good comparison, Brian.
And what's missing also is Yusuf Nurkic, their big man. They lost him to an injury before the playoffs began, but they were able to get by Denver in 7 games, and as you said, get to the Western Conference Finals. So they pick up Hassan Whiteside, to replace Yusuf Nurkic, but it just seems like they're missing Nurkic more than adding Whiteside has helped them.
Yeah, and they're missing Enes Kanter because when Nurkic went down last year, it was Kanter that came in and played the center position for them. So there's something about that. There's something about Whiteside, like I said, putting up good individual stats, but not necessarily contributing to the team as you would like.
Couple more teams we'll look at. The Denver Nuggets. They have been slated to compete. And you said something to bring the Lakers back into the conversation. Let's look at the Lakers when they play some good teams, because they had a winning streak earlier in the year. One of those good teams is the Denver Nuggets.
Well, Brian, I call these guys, the nickname I've given them a few years ago is the creamy chocolate nougats. And I'll tell you what a team they're assembling in Denver. You know, last year when they made the playoffs, I made sure I did not miss a Denver Nuggets game.
Yes.
I was at the gym on the elliptical for Game 7 of Portland and Denver that day. So even when I'm at the gym, I'm going to make sure the TV is right in front of me when the Denver Nuggets are on. An exciting team to watch. We talked about big threes a moment ago. Denver has a pretty good one when you look at Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Paul Millsap. Unfortunately for them, Millsap has really fallen off a little bit this year. Not the player that he was the past couple of seasons ago. If they're going to make noise in the playoffs, they're going to need Millsap to regain some of the strength and some of the numbers that he had in the past. Another wild card for the Nuggets is Michael Porter Jr. We saw him about a week or two ago go for 25 points on about 90% shooting from the field that night. If they can start getting solid production, although I wouldn't count on it given the young man's history of injury, but if something can happen and they get Michael Porter playing good basketball for them when the playoffs come around, they could be a very dangerous team. And Jokic is taking his game to another level, and that's a scary thing as well. If he continues to do that, he's going to find himself in the MVP race.
The man they call the Joker, Nikola Jokic, I love watching him play. I love watching him help lead this Denver Nuggets team. What gets them over the hump in the postseason?
Jokic must take over. He must be aggressive. We saw earlier in the season, Brian, where it looked like the guy forgot how to shoot. He had several games where he was in single-digit scoring. He had, double-digit assists, double-digit rebounding, because he can do just about everything else. And I'm like you, Brian. It is so fun to watch Jokic play basketball. A 7-footer who can dribble, who can pass. He can do just about everything except jump. But he's an excellent player, but that's what's going to put him over. I think it's the combination of Jokic and Murray. We've seen Murray score over 50 points in a game. We know he's got that killer instinct in him. They need both of those guys simultaneously to play their best basketball, and if that happens, they could find themselves in the conference finals.
Last but not least, let's look at Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks.
Luka must-see TV, and I never thought I'd say that when the season started, Brian. I thought Luka had a great rookie year. I had no idea he was going to take his game to the level that